All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Switcheo Labs' first Fireside chat. Very glad to have all of you here. My name is Josh, and I'll be hosting this chat today. Very excited to have all of you here, and then very excited to share more about what Switcheo has been up to. So joining us today, we have an exciting lineup of speakers who will be discussing more about Carbon Protocol and all things DeFi. First off, I'd like to introduce our CEO of Switcheo Labs, Ivan Poon.
Yes, hey Josh, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you fine. All right, next up we have three validators here with us. So we have Nelson from Pacific Validators, and Nathaniel from Block Hunters, as well as Michael from Axe Validators. So I'm very glad to have all of you here with us today. Before we jump into the panel, there is some quick information for all of our attendees. There will be a section at the end of this panel. During this time, you can type your questions into the Q&A box, and I'll ask your questions on your behalf. If there's any technical difficulties, you can reach out to our moderators who will assist you with these matters. Okay, so to kickstart the discussion, could I have Nathaniel just briefly explain to the audience what validators do, followed by—
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, followed by an explanation of how you guys all got into validating for Switcheo.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to see everyone here. To get really briefly into it, most people already know, if they're watching this, validators are node operators. So they each store a copy of the blockchain and must perform certain functions to keep the system secure. Now, it's an extremely important job because it authors new blocks on the chain. Ourselves personally, Block Hunters team, it was born with the purpose of supporting the decentralized project. And in reaching that goal, basically, we're heading a little bit in towards what we call the crypto revolution. So for that reason, specifically, Carbon is our sole project and the first project we were actually involved in terms of validators.
Okay, Nelson, would you like to continue with how you got into Switcheo as a validator?
Yeah, so I started with the project back in 2018. And then once it evolved and we got into DEMEX, after that first round of the top 10 validators were selected, once it was open for more validators, that's when I got involved and we launched the Pacific Validators.
All right, cool. Michael, can we finish off with your story?
Yes, I'm Aggregators since February. I joined late, but we are growing. And I think another role from Validators is to actively participate in governance vote. And they have also an important role in educating the community and give support to users. And be sure that validators are running correctly the server and protect private keys, and they have a very important role in protecting the network.
All right, so Switcheo Labs has recently announced that its flagship DeFi protocol would be renamed Carbon. This is to reinforce the company's commitment to decentralization. So with all that we're seeing about Carbon and its goal of being the core of all things DeFi, where do you guys see Carbon fitting into the wider DeFi ecosystem? Can we start with Ivan, please?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, so Carbon's actually a continuation of what we already have previously, Switcheo Trade Hub, right? And we basically rename it Carbon to better reflect that Carbon is a decentralized blockchain rather than something that's fully owned or governed by Switcheo Labs, which is our company. So as you can see here, like today, we are very glad to have some of our validators with us, and yeah, and these validators are the ones that actually secure the chain, and it's not just Switcheo that's actually running the whole show. So yeah, so how Carbon actually fits into the whole DeFi ecosystem, I guess, is to is, as the name suggests, right, is to be at the core of all the many blockchains that are coming out, because at Switcheo we really believe that the future is basically a multi-chain world, and the future is it's a world that basically everything will be on blockchains, and therefore where Carbon really fits in is really as a connector of all these various blockchains, and to enable people or to enable users to be able to say transact any token from say blockchain A to secondary blockchain, say from Ethereum to BSC, for example. And of course, the most important thing is that as mentioned previously, DMAX, it's a derivative exchange that's built on top of Carbon, and so what this means is that for Carbon enables people not to just transfer assets from one blockchain to another. It also allows people to do any type of financial transaction. So say being able to short a token, or to be in future to be able to buy options to hedge certain cryptocurrency position, for example. Yeah, so I think that's how it summarizes what I see Carbon as like.
All right. Would anyone like to add on to that, or we can move on to an exciting one, which is which item on the Carbon roadmap has you guys most excited for the future? And I think anyone can just chime in here.
Yeah, no one's talking. So I think the most exciting things for the validators here will be it's going to be a lot cheaper to run the nodes when we very soon when we launch our Stargate upgrade. So what this means is that and one of the reasons why we spend a lot of time on this upgrade, right, and not actually push out additional like trading features, is because we have spent a lot of time trying to optimize the node software, and very soon running a node will actually use a lot less hard disk space. So I think now validators are using over 1 terabyte for their state storage, and if you run the off-chain database, that's another like 1 to 2 terabytes. So with the upgrade that's coming out, Stargate, right, actually it's going to reduce the database storage by dramatically. First of all, to hopefully like just a couple 100 gigabytes. And if you don't want to run a data node, meaning you don't need to serve API users, you just want to validate, then if you run it without the off-chain data, you can we expect it to be like less than say 100 gigabytes of state, and that's because we will finally have stable support for transaction and block pruning, as well as state pruning. So that means that the node will not need to even validators don't need to host, don't need to store basically the whole transaction history of Carbon. And that's very important for us because Carbon has a 1 second block time, and actually all this block storage and transaction storage takes up a lot of space for validators. So hopefully in our next Fireside chat, we'll have like a lot more validators supporting Carbon.
All right, Nathaniel, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I was gonna interject on that a little bit. I'm really glad that Ivan explained exactly one of the procedures that's gonna make our life easier as validators. I wanted to talk more specifically about the AMM, more likely the automated market making system. You know, the order book is definitely a key feature that will increase liquidity on the entire ecosystem. What I mean by that is that, you know, the adoption of the Switcheo token, it will be used as incentivization for the liquidity pool providers. So what this means is that liquidity will drive volume, and that in turn means that it's an important feature, along with the on-chain referral mechanism. It's a game changer on Demix from my perspective. It will allow influencers, a lot of marketers to actually promote their referral link in the exchange for a percentage commission for the trading fees. So this will attract gains and of course more volumes on the market overall. I know there's a little bit of concern, on increasing the liquidity overall on the chain and the Demix system in general. So I think this is one of the main things that we're looking at specifically from block hunters. The AMM system is brilliant in terms of upgrade on this question.
Yeah, so just to quickly add on regarding the AMM system, there's actually quite a few things you're looking at. I think it's on our roadmap, right? First of all, the first one is reworking the incentives. Recently, in DeFi, right, there's a lot of new innovations on how you can better incentivize liquidity. I think right, Olympus is one of the new trending things that's going on. And what you do instead of basically renting out liquidity by paying in native tokens, basically we pay you Switcheo tokens, you pay in liquidity. That is not as sustainable because you basically have to keep paying. And the moment you stop paying these liquidity rewards, a lot of LPs will leave. So the thing that we're exploring now, it's how can you instead trade liquidity for tokens in the same way that Olympus does. So you do a bond, you buy a Switcheo token at discount, and then you put like 90% of that LP, and the LP is locked forever in, say, the Switcheo development fund or locked in some sort of treasury or even burned forever. And that gives you persistent liquidity rather than very mercenary liquidity. So that's the first thing that we are looking at. And of course, we are also looking at tweaking how the bonding mechanism works. Maybe instead of, let's say if we still have rewards, right? One interesting thing that people have been trying is to lock the rewards as well. Yeah, by the end of the day, I think one of the reasons why we, at the beginning, we also have this commit system is because we wanted sticky liquidity. So we want liquidity that's not as mercenary, that will stay there for at least a certain amount of time. Yeah, so that's on the incentive side for AMM. Of course, the most important thing for spot, at least, for futures, a lot more complicated. But for spot, liquidity, it's in the standard XYK model, liquidity actually it's spread across the entire spectrum, right? From 0 to infinity of prices. And so amplified AMMs is of course the other thing that we are working on as one of the other priorities. That allows us to basically do things like stable coin swaps, and concentrate all the liquidity at a single price. In the same way that CurveFi or like I think Kyber does for some of their pools. That will allow pools such as our current XHED BUSD pool to be a lot more effective. So with just say $1 million of liquidity, you can support like hundreds of thousands or even millions of volume without having to wait for arbitrages or without having to like do your trades in very slow piecewise manner. Yeah, so in terms of AMMs, those are two main things we're looking at improving for Carbon. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Michael, do you have anything to add to what do you find most exciting about the Carbon roadmap?
Yes, regarding the roadmap, I think the whole development of the roadmap will be greater than the sum of all its parts, because users will have in one platform a lot of features like the futures, collateralized debt position, spot market options, and I mean, I'm not aware there are many blockchains that are building a complete decentralized network. And for sure, I believe that the financial sophistication that we are going to reach will attract new users and giving them a lot of possibility to trade and do their activity inside the Carbon blockchain. Also is very important, I see in the roadmap, there is compatibility with the Ethereum virtual machine that will open possibility to build smart contract and develop a new application and create a very complex ecosystem with incentivized developer from community. And yes, that's what I wanted to say.
All right, Nelson, do you have anything to add to that, or should we move on to the next question?
Just move on to the next.
Okay. Okay, so recently the Stargate upgrade has been a topic of interest. So from your perspective, how do you think Carbon's launch coupled with the upgrade will help to strengthen the ecosystem and benefit users of the protocol? I can start with Ivan again, I suppose.
Yeah, so I mean, I already mentioned some of the more fundamental technical reasons we're doing it, such as like making nodes easier to run, making things faster. One thing that's not really related to Stargate, but something that we spend a lot of time on is improving the WebSocket support and reliability. So we want to make sure that the latency it's really comparable to how it will work on a centralized exchange. So we don't really, we are now the block time is about 2+ seconds, and sometimes nodes fall behind, and then it takes a couple more seconds to confirm. That's something we want to solve, and that's why we have spent time optimizing how the data flows through the blockchain. Yeah. Beyond like architecture improvements, definitely I think the reason why we decided to invest a lot of time in Stargate, even though we already built a lot of modules on the the pre-Stargate version, is of course the three main things. The first one is IBC, of course, being able to connect to blockchains like Terra, Secret Network, etc. The other one is to be able to support WASM better. So this allows us to add smart contract modules so that the development will be easier to do open development, similar to what Michael pointed out just now. And then the last one is basically better compatibility with the Itamin module. Itamin is the module that allows Cosmos SDK chains to process EVM transactions. So that will allow us to do things like accept signatures with, or to say deploy Solidity contracts, as well as to accept MetaMask-like transactions, and then without using a separate wallet such as Kepler. Yeah. So yeah, so for Stargate, I think those are the three main reasons that we decided to invest a considerable amount of time to upgrade the chain there.
All right. Let's move on then. Thanks for that. So with true decentralization of Carbon being the end goal, and you guys as validators, I think would have an interesting input into this. What do you think key players and protocol developers can do to ensure that the space remains truly neutral? Why don't we start with Nathaniel this time?
Sure. So here, personally, I would say, and of course, on behalf of Block Hunters, I would say that protocol developers are key players and pillars of the community and the project itself. So they should find a balance between their own interest and what's good for the project. This is always a very fine line. It's very difficult to find this kind of a solution. And now this could possibly be solved by creating a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization where key actors such as developers, validators, and community members will have a chance to be part of the election if they pass the on-chain election. So that's pretty much the way we see it.
I see. Cool. So anyone else that has anything to add to what Nathaniel mentioned?
Yeah, I think for Carbon, the way we we're still really in the early stages of development, to be honest. So and that's why we do most of our a lot of our development. It's pretty centralized still. We definitely want to open up that aspect, and I think that should happen pretty soon after we launch the Stargate mainnet, the aggregator mainnet. How I see it moving forward is that we have already been working on similar model for our other products, such as ZeroSwap, which is a layer 1 exchange that's fully on chain, and we do accept any sort of pull request, any sort of requests, right, from or any sort of development collaboration from other teams or other developers. We really want to do that with Carbon as well. Yeah, but for the sake of speed and efficiency, it's still not fully open source. Yeah, so the other thing that we are actually working on right now, it's a decentralized relayer sort of network, and we also foresee that the relayers which actually do the deposit, assist in the deposit and withdrawal flow, right, on DMAX. We also want to decentralize that aspect of it. So for us, really, the entire the entire protocol, from development to governance to even hosting in future, like the UI hosting, we want that to be completely decentralized, completely neutral, completely permissionless. Yeah, so that's really the end goal for us.
All right, thanks guys. I think we can move on to the Q&A section. So we've got a lot of interesting questions that have come in. Let's start with a question on relayers. More specifically, the status of relayers for IBC transfers on Carbon. Ivan, do you think you'd be able to share more on this topic?
What does IBC relayer mean though? So for IBC, so right now our main mechanism for moving funds in and out is through polynetwork relation. That's in future, polynetwork will, I believe, they'll have a token as well, and move to a sort of proof of stake model. As I mentioned just now, in terms of relayers, actually a lot of it can be done by anyone, but for efficiency, for the sake of speed, we do all the relaying for everyone at this moment. So that's how we do the cross-chain mechanism currently. We do want to move. We do what I mentioned just now, right? And what the question is asking is about the IBC inter-blockchain communication sort of relayers, and that's a different way to do cross-chain transfers. And currently, it's mainly for transfers between Cosmos SDK based chain. So things like, I think, Kronos, Secret Network, Osmosis, Cosmos Hub. Yeah, there are quite a lot currently. And this allows direct transfers from blockchain A to blockchain B without a middleman chain like Polynetwork. And so it's really a peer-to-peer, blockchain-to-blockchain communication mechanism. So for that particular network, it's pretty permissionless. I won't go too deep into the details about it. But in terms of relayers, it's open source sort of relayer software, and similar to what we want to do for Polynetwork as well. So actually anyone can run it. We can just run it, configure our modules to say accept tokens from chain A, and then yeah, that basically as long as the chains are configured properly, it will work. We don't actually need to rebuild layers or anything like that. Yeah. So of course, then the third way to do things is to use the gravity bridge, which relies fully on the validators to watch all the blockchains. We didn't opt for that because it's kind of complicated. What this means is that then all validators here with us today will need to not just run a Carbon node, you got to run a BSC node, a Silicon node, a Ethereum node, etc., so that you can validate all these transfers as well. So, but there's an alternative that we definitely can support as an alternative to Poly network. Yeah. Yeah, hope I answered the question.
Okay, in similar vein, another question or a question from James. On a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is the Stargate upgrade and why?
So someone asked me this before. The difficulty really depends primarily on how complex your pre-Stargate chain is. So for a lot of chains that are very simple, right? Some of them basically just have the determine module, meaning it's just the EVM module and it's really, really simple. It's probably like a one-day job to upgrade. But for us, because we have at least 15 different modules, we actually finished the CDP module already, of the broker, we have the AMM, the AMM to order book module, the leverage module, the margin module. That's really a lot of code. And then the complexity goes up a lot because basically you need to make sure each module is compatible with Stargate. And the reason for this is that Stargate actually introduces a new encoding, right? Based on Google's protobuf, actually. So this encoding allows other IBC compliant chains to actually understand the data within your own chain, and to make sure all this works and to make sure we do not screw up, because we really got quite a bit of NAV assets on our chain. We need to make sure that we don't accidentally make a mistake during this translation. Yeah, so that's the main thing in terms of complexity. And of course, this is just one part of it. The other thing was that since we were rebuilding this whole thing, right, the whole chain basically, we wanted to optimize like a whole lot of things, which I mentioned just now, right? The state storage, the reliability of WebSockets, etc. And that's why it takes for us it takes a bit more time. Yeah.
Okay, another question from one of our attendees. This one comes from YouTube. What are the plans for spending of the Switcheo Development Fund?
I have no plans at the moment. Maybe the validators have some plans for that. So I think for me, I think having a treasury that's spendable by the community is actually really strong, and something we are seeing a lot more in DeFi nowadays. Like when I talked about Olympus previously, that's one of the things one of the very interesting things is that the protocol itself has a very strong treasury, on-chain treasury that that the protocol, that the governance tokens holders can vote on. The weakness of our community fund, actually, I feel, is that it's on Switcheo tokens. It will actually be even better if that could be basically converted to various other tokens, stablecoins, etc. And the reason for that is that, I mean, at our current funding, or at our current size, it's not so critical. But as, let's say, the treasury grows, right, it'd be interesting to have, let's say, a protocol that's backed by, say, 10 million USDC, for example. And let's say something needs to be done, the community can actually vote and act on it autonomously. I think that's really it's not immediately obvious now, but I think in the long run, right, that's something that could be very crucial. And like I say, then you actually have credible sort of decentralization, credible sort of neutrality, where the protocol and the governance token holders can act on their own behalf. Yeah, I know I didn't really answer the question about how the SDF should be spent, but at the end of the day, that the reason is that the funds are actually there for the community. It's not for Switcheo Labs to spend at the end of the day.
All right, so let's hear from some of the validators then. Nelson, do you have any ideas as to what we might want to spend these funds on, or any proposals?
Well, I know, and I'm waiting for more of like the open source for everything to be released more open source. I was talking to other projects that wanted to integrate within Demex, but again, talking internally with some of the community members and the team, once things are more open source, then we can use that to go ahead and integrate some of those projects, because I wasn't talked with some projects, but again, once we wait for some open source, then go ahead and build upon, because like one of them, you know, it was a token that just came out there, had some good leverage. They had good community members and stuff like that, but it's not a token that's on Demex currently, and we can't really add it because the chains that we currently are on. So again, that's something through the SDF that they were open to, was coming in and doing the open source coding, so they can go ahead and list some of that on Demex. So again, once things are through mainnet, once things are open source, I think on my end with PV and some of the projects I talked to, we may be, you know, requesting some of those funds, they can come in and integrate some of their projects.
Cool. Okay, either Nathaniel or Michael, do you guys have anything else that you want to bring up regarding this topic?
I totally agree with Nelson, and I think when a proposal from community will come, we will evaluate the project and decide if it's worthy to be financed, and we will see when the project arrives. I think that after the Stargate upgrade, probably we will attract more builders in the community that can have access to the community funds. And yes, I think after the Cosmos upgrade, it will be more easy onboarding new developers from a community.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have anything specific to add that Nelson hasn't said and Michael hasn't completed to this idea so far. We do have a couple of ideas in store, but I'll be honest with you, we want to draft them out and, you know, relay them to the community a bit later on. I don't think there's any point in discussing them right now. And even if we as validators sort of represent the community, like Ivan said, still the community gets to decide where these funds get to go to. So the only thing we can do is we can continue to come up with some great ideas. Nelson mentioned one of the best ideas that I've heard so far on using the community funds for, and then take it forward from there.
Yeah, one of the things that we were thinking about was to because the LP right now the rewards are fully directed to LPs on Demex, but previously we actually removed some of the rewards for Switcheo pools that are pegged against, say, layer 1 tokens like Ethereum and BNB, I think, because we already had layer 1 pools on PancakeSwap and SushiSwap, I think. So one use case could be to get a small amount as incentives, and then we run our own staking mechanism on the layer 1, and that will actually allow users who want to enter into the Carbon ecosystem using Switcheo and acquire Switcheo tokens to do so more easily on their own preferred chain. So right now the liquidity pools are pretty small. I think a couple of 100,000 on each chain. With some rewards, hopefully that could bridge to have a higher value. Of course, the other thing that could work is to use the Olympus method. I think Olympus Pro has this thing where you can actually do the same thing, but in the bonding model that I was briefly discussing just now. So if you actually put those funds there, that could actually grow liquidity on the layer 1 chains, make it more attractive for users to enter, especially for new users. They might not know that the deepest liquidity is on like DMAX, and then they'll like look at the layer 1 chains and they might think the liquidity is too small for them to enter. So that could be another good use case for some of the SDF funds.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. What is the state of development of cross-chain aggregation for liquidity? The proliferation of exchanges will result in a greater fragmentation of liquidity. So I suppose the question is, what is the state of development for cross-chain aggregation for liquidity? I suppose, Ivan, would you like to jump on that?
So aggregators are mainly user interfaces. They are not blockchains like Carbon. So if you look at aggregators like, say, 1inch, Matcha, I don't know what other aggregators are out there now. I think something started with P, right? I forgot. They did an airdrop recently. But anyway, aggregators usually are user interface layer across multiple liquidity pools or multiple decentralized exchanges. So I think the question is not really targeted at Carbon. I think a cross-chain aggregator would mean that you would not just integrate Carbon, you also tap into other most cross-chain or other layer 1 dexes to this aggregator. I believe the question comes about because we mentioned that it's something that we're interested in doing. But currently our main focus is still on Carbon itself, and the aggregator sort of concept is it's something that we are still in the exploration stages.
Okay, thanks. I think that is all we have time for today, unfortunately. For those questions that were submitted but we didn't manage to answer today, do keep an eye out on either our blog or our Twitter, and we'll try to get to them. Thanks everyone for joining this fireside chat, and I suppose until next time.
All right.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Everyone have a great day.
Good night. Bye.